Good morning, everyone. So I'm just going to handle the speech this morning by doing what I do at school. So first thing I'd like for you to do is turn to the person next to you and either give him a handshake, high five, or a hug. There's a reason why I did that, and that's actually my introduction. So this summer, I had the pleasure of being a part of a Paul Turner seminar on Microbes Rule. So therefore, the unit that I focused on was for my physiology class, which was the chapter on the integumentary system, or the skin. You now have a piece of everyone's bacteria with you. So at least the people you came into contact with. So that's a little introduction. My class is a high school 11th and 12th grade class, Mount Pleasant High School in Eastside, San Jose. And my students know that with Vitug's class, they have to engage in collaborative activities all the time. And the reason is, I feel like I can gain more knowledge from what they're thinking than from me standing in front of a podium and just speaking to them. So in my class, I encourage my students to communicate with each other all the time. One of the things that my students struggle with is reading. They don't like to read the textbook. They'll talk about anything, but if you ask them to read something, they're not willing to do it. Or some of them are willing, but they'll ask the person next to them, what was it even about? So I began the school year simply by asking them, think of a skin disease. Think of any skin disease. Something as simple as a pimple, something as complex as perhaps leprosy and the disgusting necrotizing fasciitis. So there was a broad range that my students were interested in. I said, we have a database on campus. It was our district invested this money on this database. Use it. So I asked them to use it. They all printed out articles that they were simply interested in. And it was very broad. The stipulation was that it had to be related to the skin. So they did. I taught them basically to utilize what they were using in their English classes in terms of marking the tags and annotating. Because I'm not the person who knows how to do that with my kids, but my kids have learned it through their English classes. So I said, let's use the same strategies. When they came to class, I didn't have time to go through 36 students and ask them what their article was about, so I asked them to do another strategy. And can I get the front row and the panelists to stand? Okay, and just face each other, please. Just a little closer. Okay, so this is one of the activities I do in my class regularly. I ask the students to come to class with their reading in hand, or their cell phones if they didn't print it out, and I ask them, line A, share what you read, line B, listen. Okay, so they do, pretend. And basically, line B would then have to say, this is what I heard about your article. After which, line B would then share their article with line A. And then they would repeat the process. Okay? We do this with several rounds, basically moving the line down, and then the person on the end would come to the other side and reshare. And you can sit down. So in this fashion, I'm able to, one, get everyone to participate. Even if it's I have my cell phone with me, I just Googled it right now. But everyone's engaged, and it's not so teacher-centric. Okay, so that's very student-centric. Once they got comfortable basically talking to each other in that fashion, I had them collaborate in smaller groups. So the focus for my unit and the culminating project was basically a skin war game. With the intention that the offense cards were going to be microbes that attack the skin, that infiltrate the defenses of the skin. The defensive parts would be the skin, its physiological mechanisms, the defense systems that it has. So yes, they had to understand what the skin parts are, what it does. That's my goal as your teacher. You have to understand the skin, you have to know what it does. But putting it in a scenario of a skin working, which I got from Troy Holidays during our seminar, my students were frustrated because they had to research all the material on their own using the database again that was taught to them. And then they had to figure out what is the defense system that the skin would use against something like perhaps something as simple as an acne, or something as terrible as perhaps like leprosy. And my students love necrotizing fasciitis because it's horrendous. And then during the game, they had to defend their cards. Like, why is my skin able to defeat your card? This is the reasons why. And my classroom got really heated. It got really heated because if you see teenagers in a competitive mode, they're like, no, you can't use that card against mine. Justify it. Where's your proof? Where's the article behind it? And so my role was really just a referee to make sure that they were playing the game, but also to make sure that it didn't get too heated. I think the best part is when they read another person's card and they're like, that point doesn't make sense. This is why it doesn't make sense. I have an article to show you that doesn't make sense. And I didn't really teach them that. They just know how to do that because that's what they researched on their own. So I guess in the end, my students were creative about the cards. They were creative about the strategies that they did. They thought critically about every move that they made. They collaborated intensely. They communicated their ideas. And finally, they were doing Common Core. They were doing our district core values and they didn't even know it. And that for me was the most valuable part. Thank you.